Before I talk about the residential school system, let me remind you that this station puts out views that are not politically correct all the time, but they're always informative. If you support us, we need the money, PayPal. And let me introduce Peter Kent, still a member of Parliament. For 13 years, you've been laboring away in Parliament. Let me ask you about the residential school, not the system, but the reaction of some Canadians to it, because this is not like Nazi Germany. Canadians didn't know about the residential school system. The governments are responsible, and things should be done with our Indigenous peoples. There's no question about that. But if no one knew, should we be hanging our head in shame?
Well, Canadians are in shock today because of the confirmation of testimony that we heard during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, to which Canadians did not pay a great deal of attention.
This is not news. It's been out there for years.
No, and testimony indicated that at least as many as 6,000 children had been buried improperly on the grounds of residential schools across the country. And the recommendations within the TRC were that they be discovered, they be properly interred, and that they returned to their family for closure.
And the government was not actively pursuing that.
It hasn't, and the Prime Minister has tried to shift all the attention to the responsibility of the Catholic schools, primarily, although there are other religious orders did operate these schools.
Anglican, United, and it was Pierre Elliott Trudeau that brought them all under the rubric of the federal government.
That's right. The federal government carries the ultimate responsibility.
And Prime Minister Harper apologized for that.
Yes.
Even though it was a Liberal government.
One of the first actions of the Conservative government under Prime Minister Harper was to make a formal apology for the residential schools on behalf of the Government of Canada and the people of Canada. The Liberals have not followed up, and they've been very slow to implement any of the recommendations from the TRC.
And do we need a few more facts on this if we can get them? Because, I mean, that report was very, very illustrative of what happened. But, I mean, I heard on the radio today, all these children were murdered. Well, we don't know that. They're probably not well treated, but it could have been smallpox or some disease.
Well, neglect is manslaughter.
Yes.
So, and we know that there was cruelty, great cruelty. There was neglect, but there were also sicknesses in those barracks. Basically, the residential schools were underheated barracks, and we know that tuberculosis and smallpox and measles, quite probably, took a terrible toll. The crime was in the way the church and the federal government tried to simply dispose of those children as though they were waste.
There's no question. But Canadians didn't know, so my recommendation would be, instead of just moaning about it, let's get on and do something.
Well, and we must reflect on it, and we must, the controversy over Canada Day. We must reflect on the wrongs done by government in our name, but we must also celebrate the greatness of this country, where so many people around the world are dying to come.
Absolutely. Peter Kent. Well said, thank you. 3 minutes. Our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, recently stood up in the House of Commons and prefaced his remarks by saying, "And we will only work from the facts," quote, unquote, and then proceeded to lie by saying Britain was in a horrible, horrible third wave, trying to show, in fact, that Canada was not the worst in the world. Britain, though, had vaccines. Canada did not. And this was not reported in the mainstream Canadian media, the media paid for by Justin Trudeau. All of which, I'm telling you, is that it's important to have this 3-minute interview. Please subscribe, ask your friends to subscribe, and press that PayPal thing so we can continue on to bring you the news you otherwise might not know.